Welcome to Devil's Advocate. I'm Mike Krause from the Independence Institute. Obviously, I'm not your usual host, John Caldera, due to the full head of hair. I have no idea where John is. He will be back shortly. In the meantime, I'm your guest host. A little bit later in this show, we're going to be talking about housing economics and the rapidly rising cost of housing in Colorado. In the meantime, we're going to talk about local government issues. And with us from the Independence Institute, Greg Bratton. How are you, Greg?
Pretty good.
Good. Thanks for coming by. And Kathleen Chandler from Independence Institute. How are you, Kathleen?
I'm doing great.
Okay. Let's start. The federal government gets the majority of the attention in this world because that's where the majority of our taxes go. It's where the majority of the reporters are reporting, and it's where the big ticket items happen. You move down to the state government, gets a lot of attention. That's the next highest level of our taxes. A lot of times what's forgotten is the local government and the impact it has on our day-to-day lives. And in Colorado, if you include cities, counties, special districts, and school districts, we have how many governments?
About 3,700, and probably closing in on 4,000.
3,700 local governments. My God.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And so over the last year, you have been doing this horrible project where you've been locked away in an office, actually putting together a database of all of these local governments, and more importantly, what we call the substrata of these governments. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Tell us about, when we say substrata, what are we referring to?
A lot of these are appointed advisory councils and boards to local cities or towns around the metro area and anywhere in the state that they don't have any actual legal force, but they all feed into the local city councils and give them advice on where to put a trail or how to maintain a trail or where school district funds or planning and zoning or board of adjustments. If someone needs to make a statute to change or something like that, they go to this advisory council and they ask for their advice to see if they're doing the right thing or not.
Right. And you've actually gone through and gone to these various cities and to the websites and to various sources of information and actually put together a spreadsheet of the various commissions and boards within each of these governments. And how many boards and commissions did you come up with?
I couldn't give you a single number because there's far too many. So the 3,700 number, a lot of them are even other things that feed into that. So it's hard to put a real number on that, but it's never ending. It's always expanding.
All right.
And what's really crazy is that because of these boards and commissions, that people don't realize that those actually affect your day-to-day life.
Right.
They have much more greater impact on you than, say, I know we always want to talk about President Obama or what's going on at the federal level, but that's a big, large ship, and it takes a long time to turn it. But tomorrow, they could determine a zoning or a planning project that is going to affect you the next day. And so people don't understand that the local government is really where things are happening at a bigger clip than it is actually at the federal level. So these boards and commissions are extremely important to get involved in.
And having served on one of these boards in Denver years ago, I can tell you that they meet and they are largely ignored. There's just not a lot of public that shows up to watch a board of commission meet. So they actually get to make a lot of decisions, and very rarely do they get covered until such time as they make a recommendation to city council, for an ordinance or something like that.
Right. And really, these boards and commissions often just give cover to the state or to the local government because they might make a recommendation or wherever that goes then back up to city council. So oftentimes, these actually have a lot of power, whether it's budgetary constraints or maybe that's that specific zoning problem that's going on in your community. They have a lot of power because then they push it on up to your city council.
All right, let's get specific about some of these commissions. Go ahead and rattle off if you go into just a Colorado town or city, what would be the standard kind of bevy of boards and commissions you'd find?
You typically find a planning commission.
Right.
Then planning and zoning is typically the same one, or board of adjustment, board of appeals, which adjustment and appeals are things where people have a problem with certain statutes or business regulations and things like that, and also library boards, historic preservation boards. So a town that's been around for 100 years already has a historic preservation board,
Right.
Park and Rec.
Parks and Rec, yeah.
Parks and Rec is a big
Huge
one, right?
one.
In fact,
Huge
they
one.
named it a television show after it. It's such a big deal.
Yeah, this is exactly right. They also, some of them even have tree commissions. So if you want to decide where trees are in your community, well, there's an advisory council for that.
Okay, now you have taken the data that Greg has put together, and you've actually been going out and talking to groups, organizations, et cetera, about this, trying to explain to them. A lot of people are just unaware of the size and scope of this substrata of local government, but you're also trying to pitch to them the importance of, if you want to get involved, if you've been looking for a way to get involved, and you're not crazy enough to want to run for public office and put yourself through that, this is actually an excellent way to get involved in your local government, where you can actually impact local decisions that in turn impact you and your neighbors, right?
Right. We actually say, stop complaining. Get involved in your local government by being on a board or commission. So what we're trying to do is recruit people, because oftentimes, as you said earlier, these boards and commissions they have vacancies, sure, or they're just not well attended. So we're trying to tell people, hey, look, instead of trying to run for office or think that you should give money to a candidate, although those are important things to do, oftentimes being on a board or commission doesn't require a whole lot but time. And so if you can give 2 hours a month to being on one of these boards, you can have a huge impact on your community. You don't have to run for office, you don't have to raise money, you don't have to go door to door. You actually really might not even have to know a lot about the subject, other than you just have a passion and might be able to tell them, well, is this the proper role of government? That's basically what we're asking you to do, is to go into these commissions, sit on these boards, and be a rational person and ask questions. Because that's where then these substratas go, well, maybe we shouldn't do this, maybe we shouldn't do that. And then they realize that government really is overreaching into the community.
Actually,
so
this is one of those interesting places,
yeah,
where you could, like, a single voice could speak up and all of a sudden change a bunch of minds at the table.
Absolutely.
Because they never thought of it before, because, let's face it, a lot of these are just volunteers, right?
Right.
And this doesn't take a lot of your time either.
No, it's about 2 hours to maybe 4 hours a month, depending on the scope of the particular commission. But so we're talking 4 hours a month. So, one late evening a month to sit around and actually have an impact on what's going on in your community. And what's really exciting is, because you have an actual role on a board or commission, you all of a sudden have credibility. You've got an opportunity to be able to call your city council and say, hey, I'm on the planning commission, and they just might take your phone call. Whereas before, you were just average citizen. Well, now you have a little bit more clout, and you actually can then become an expert in a specific field. Let's say you want to become an expert in water issues. Why not, get on the water board in your local community, and then all of a sudden you learn everything you've ever wanted to know about being on the water board. We always talk about Aunt B in Mayberry RFD. She was on probably the library board, right?
Aunt B in Mayberry RFD was on the library board,
absolutely,
and that brings me to my next question for you. In many ways, this is just civic engagement. This is what, in bygone times, this was just assumed and expected of people, that they would get involved in the local community in a civic-minded way, and this was a way to do it. But in many ways, these are also political positions, because you're actually influencing your local elected officials with regard to ordinance, possibly budgetary matters. And in many ways, this is like a training ground to then move up, try and run for public office,
right,
et cetera. So there's a political element to these, right?
Absolutely. If you want to run for political office, this is the greatest place to get some, your feet wet, so to speak.
Understand civics a little better.
Absolutely. How you interact, how the different boards interact with your city council, how the city council actually works. You would probably end up going to a city council meeting.
How the sausage machine works.
Exactly.
How sausage is made.
But you do not have to run for office to get appointed to these boards, so that you don't have that pressure, right, before you get that experience. So if you want to run for public office, this is a great place to try.
Yeah, a certain aspect of it is almost beautiful, that local communities have such a vibrancy of their civil society to be willing to go out and do this. But then the other side is, are these just people meddling in other people's lives, and they just need to slow down?
Right, you think about,
and
they're very different things, right? But you think about like a homeowners association, which I've been in before, and what usually happens is the people who want to be on the homeowners association board are the people who want to tell other people what color they can't paint their house.
Yeah.
And in many ways,
don't like that one guy's house, or
you don't like the flag he's flying,
yeah,
or you don't like the rocks in his front up on his garden.
Bringing the neighborhood down.
So this does also have a certain appeal to people who want to butt in to other people's business. But if there's people on the board that want to butt into other people's business, that makes it all the more important that people join up who don't want to butt into your business, right? To offset that?
The rational side needs to be prevalent, and that would be who we're asking to join these boards. We're asking those that can just really be that rational person who says, is this the proper role of government? Not, I want to do more government or I want to stop government necessarily, but is this the proper role? Because there is a role for government. There is a role for the Board of Commissions for Planning or the Liquor Board or even the Marijuana Commission. Or, you know, in Denver, there is all sorts of bike commissions because everybody's biking around. So those are the kinds of things that might be necessary, but we just need to put the role in perspective as to how it's going to govern our own lives.
Okay. I'm going to have to go ahead and tell you this, though. When I lived in Denver, I was on the board. I was a board member of our Registered Neighborhood Association. And there's a ton of them in Denver, right? It was agonizing, I tell you, because it's about building consensus, and it's about everybody getting input, and it's about everyone kind of coming to an agreement. And for a libertarian-leaning guy like me, the idea of having to come to a consensus with a whole table full of people drives me absolutely up a wall. But at the same time, it was invaluable because you get to see how you influence your local elected officials. Because we could actually go, like if there was a liquor license up for appeal, even if the board voted not to support it, I as an individual board member could go down and speak in support of it, even though the board had. And so this also becomes a way for you to start getting lobbied by your neighbors, right? Especially if they have a permit that's going to get denied, or if they want to build an addition to their house. All of a sudden you're on the Board of Adjustment, and all of a sudden you've met neighbors you've never met before, and you start to learn what it's like to not just get lobbied, but also when people get pissed at you for telling them no, right?
Right. You just have to be a citizen who's willing to really just be the activist for what is right for your community and not feel those outside pressures from those groups that are trying to get in. We're always talking about crony capitalism, and we don't want any kind of cronyism, but we also want to hear the voice of the people. And as a person who's on this board, you do represent your neighbors and your neighborhood. And so that is a great way to get to know your neighbors. It's a great way to be an advocate for what you believe in, but for also who you represent within that board.
Now, how do most of these, we're running a little bit short on time, but let's go ahead and, so there's an opening in your local town, right?
A lot of them are posted on the websites.
And they'll post them on the websites. It's all public information. So what do? You actually literally apply?
Yes, there is an online application you can go to. 99% of them are online. You just click, fill out the application. Most of the time they don't even ask you a whole lot of information. They might ask you to submit some kind of a resume. So, you know, I wouldn't suggest putting anything too much on your resume because you don't want to be too political, because these are nonpartisan places for you to serve.
Yeah, some of them do require an expertise for like planning and zoning.
They want you to know a little something about something,
or experience with real estate.
And so then, as a general rule, in some places it might not work this way. The mayor would appoint you, and then the city council would have to approve you. So you're literally going through like a ratification process.
Yeah.
It depends.
But this is a great.
It depends. Every city's a little.
But since you're not a Supreme Court justice, you can have a few skeletons in your closet and still pull this off. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Well, look, good work you're doing. Nice job on putting together a database, and this is important stuff. And you guys have been doing a bang-up job of spreading the word about how to get involved in your local government. Thanks for joining us today.
All right.
Stick around.